It is my honor to introduce the speaker for our Fall Convocation. And I thought about how I wanted to do the introduction, and typically when we do introductions, we have a litany of things that we list of what that person has accomplished and what they have done. And while I'm going to do part of that, I also want to talk about the college president, the HBCU college president, and what that means. When we look for a president at Tuskegee University, what are the qualifications and what are the criteria that we look for? And one of the things I think that is so very, very important, especially at a historically black college, is that we want a person to own and be proud of their heritage and who they are, and be proud of this African American heritage particularly. And we have that. We have that. We also want a person who is highly intelligent, and we have that because Dr. McNair has displayed that with her degrees in psychology from Princeton and master's and Ph.D. from Stony Brook in New York. In clinical psychology, we have a person that is able to connect with other people, and that is so important. Those interpersonal skills that are necessary in order to be able to make connections with donors as well as with students, faculty, staff. We also want a person that understands the inner workings of a university. Dr. McNair has done that. She has risen from faculty status, where she worked at University of Georgia, being the first African American to achieve tenure status and full professorship, all the way up to being the senior vice president of academic affairs at Wagner College in New York. So she understands how a university is supposed to work on every level, at the faculty level, at the student level, at the staff level, at the administrative level. And that is what we need. Dr. McNair has also shown that she is a scholar, having published many articles and written several chapters in textbook and books. She also is a compassionate, family-oriented person. And don't we need that at Tuskegee? Because we are a family at Tuskegee, and she believes in family. I want to acknowledge her husband, who is sitting on the front row. You know, this is the love of her life, I'm quite sure. If you'll please stand. Dr. George Cooper. But the main thing, I think, that is so critical when selecting a college president is that person has to understand that students come first. We are not here for the glory of ourselves, but for the uplifting of our students. And Dr. McNair expresses that every time she gets a chance. She is student-oriented, she is faculty-friendly, but more importantly, she has a love for the education of our African American youth and next generation. Having said all of that, I just want to welcome Dr. McNair, our first female president of Tuskegee University after 136 years, 37 years. And so here again, another first. Will you please stand and join me in welcoming, as I present to you and introduce to you, our 8th president of Tuskegee University, Dr. Lily D. McNair.
Thank you very much, Provost Troy, for those wonderful and inspiring words of introduction. I said to her, you brought me to tears. You're not supposed to do that before I get up here and give a talk. But your words are very much heartfelt. To Dr. Troy and pulpit guests, to my very special class of 2022, to members of the Board of Trustees, would you please rise so that we may acknowledge you, as well as our little trustee right here. Faculty, alumni, eminent associates, the first gentleman of Tuskegee University, and all special guests. I am honored to stand before you this morning to deliver the Fall 2018 Convocation Series address. I'm especially pleased that I can continue the discussion that I started with you, members of the class of 2022, when I spoke to you at the close of your orientation activities. Remember, I spoke about the various ways to enhance your learning as a student at Tuskegee. I encourage you to be curious, to read a lot, to write a lot, and do not multitask. I hope you've been doing that in the last few weeks since you've been starting here. But I'd like to add another instruction to this list, an attribute that is shown to have important effects on your lives, and that is be optimistic. I have entitled my address, The Spirit of Optimism, a Recipe for Success. I'll discuss the role of optimism in my life, provide a brief summary of the psychological literature on optimism. You know I have to do that since I'm a psychologist, right? Okay. Talk about optimism in education and the ways in which optimism can bring about success for our students and for our institution. All of this is critical as we seek excellence in every way at Tuskegee University. Merriam-Webster defines optimism as the feeling or belief that good things will happen. And the word optimism derives from the Latin optimum, the best. Psychologists define optimism as the extent to which people hold generalized, favorable expectancies for their future. General ideas about how you think your future will be. Positive ideas. There are many positive associations with being optimistic. Optimists do better in difficult and trying and stressful times. Optimists are more likely to be proactive when it comes to their health. They're more likely to take steps that will lead to better health outcomes and take preventive measures such as losing weight, staying compliant with diabetes medication, and so on. Optimists report that they do better in relationships. They have positive ideas about the outcomes of their behaviors in their relationships. Now, we know that optimism is a trait. It's an attribute. It's something that resides in you. It's an individual quality that varies between people. But what we may not know is that you can learn to be optimistic. And we'll talk about that a little bit today. Many people have told me that I'm a positive person, that I'm optimistic. And I have to agree. My orientation is to see the world as positive. I see challenges as opportunities. I look for and see the best in everyone. I want to share with you class of 2022 some examples of the ways in which optimism has been pivotal in my life, especially my educational life, that has bearing for our discussion of optimism in education. Someone asked me the other day, a member of the Board of Trustees, said to me, "How did you go to Princeton? Like, did you just decide that you were going to go there?" Because they knew I'm a first-generation student. Neither of my parents went to college. Clearly, I did not know anyone who went to college other than my teachers at school. But at 8 years old, I said, I'm going to Princeton, after I had heard about Princeton's graduation on television. My parents were very realistic. They weren't as optimistic as I was. They said, "How will we pay for it? We don't have that kind of money." My response was, "I'm getting scholarships." I don't know how I knew about scholarships, and I did. By the time I graduated from college, my parents had paid $200 each year for me to attend college. And back in those days, 4 years at Princeton cost $12,000, okay? My mother said, a realist, girls are not allowed at Princeton, which was true. At that time, it was all male, until 1973. To which little 8-year-old Lily said, "Well, when it's time for me to go to college, they're going to let girls in, and I'm going." I look back now, I have no idea how I was so determined and optimistic about going to Princeton, but I decided, this is the school for me. It's 40 minutes away, it's a little bit far, but not too far away from home. And my expectations of a favorable outcome became a reality. So it wasn't that I wanted to go to an Ivy League school. I did not apply to any other Ivy League schools. I wanted to go to Princeton. Okay? But this was also the case when I applied to graduate school in clinical psychology. All that I had heard throughout my years in college was how difficult it was to be admitted to this graduate program. But I knew that I'd be a strong candidate. As a senior, I saw myself in graduate school. I imagined myself in graduate school. There was no way out of, well, if I don't get in, I'm going to take a year off and work. I knew I was going to be accepted, and that I would be accepted to several schools, and I would choose the school that would be the best fit for me. My experiences in college supported my application as someone who was interested in research and clinical work, and I have been very diligent throughout my years in creating a portfolio that would set me apart. As a matter of fact, I went to one of my advisors when I was a sophomore in college, and he said, "Why are you coming to see me? You're too early." I said, "I'm trying to get ready for a graduate school." It's like the REACH program, right? We start thinking about the future the moment we set foot on college. In each of these situations, I didn't allow myself to consider failure. I expected good things to happen to me, which is one of the definitions of optimism. Now, you might be wondering, is optimism similar to hope? Is optimism similar to hope? Yes. When people are hopeful, they are motivated to reach goals, even when there are obstacles in their way. This is very similar to the ways in which people with optimism learn from experiences that are difficult to persevere and to succeed. Some people call this grit as well. Gerstein writes about hope and optimism as the other 21st century learning skills. Optimism and hope can be learned, and they are both correlated with increased learning and academic achievement. Optimism and hope are correlated with increased learning and academic achievement, as well as all of the outcomes noted above: positive relationships, positive health outcomes, a sense of satisfaction with life. So what can explain this relationship? How does being optimistic relate to better outcomes in education, better learning, better achievement? When students are optimistic, they see themselves as being able to solve problems that arise. You see yourselves as a problem solver. You have a sense of self-efficacy and a sense of self-confidence. And again, remember my example about graduate school. I was confident that I would be successful. Students who are hopeful and optimistic have higher GPAs. Hope and optimism predict academic achievement even when you take into account intelligence and high school GPA and college entrance exam scores. So hope and optimism can have an impact even greater than those factors. This means that people with similar IQs, similar grade point averages, and similar SAT and ACT scores will do better academically when they are hopeful and optimistic. What might be going on underneath this is that psychological expectancies, or your thoughts about what will happen in the future, are powerful predictors of behavior. Think about that for a minute. Your expectancies or your ideas about what will happen or how people will behave can impact the way others behave. There was a famous study, and those of you who are psych majors may have heard about this study, the Rosenthal-Jacobson study, where students were placed in classrooms with teachers who were told that 20% of these students were intellectually gifted. This was all made up. Those students were chosen randomly. But the students who were labeled as intellectually gifted performed better than the other students on IQ tests at the end of the year. So the teachers' expectancies and ideas about how we will behave are powerful, as much as the expectancies we hold for ourselves. In that particular study, it's very possible that the teachers reached out to the students that they saw as gifted, interpreted the behaviors of students who were gifted in ways that led to students learning more and being able to perform better on those tests at the end of the year. So the expectancies that we hold for ourselves are powerful as well. And Tuskegee University is a place where we all expect the best of ourselves and each other. We expect excellence in every way. For students, I want to encourage you as a means of increasing optimism and hope, because I want to see you reach your highest goals. I want to see each of you graduate and say, I got an excellent education, I gave it my all, and I feel that I am excellently prepared for whatever path I've chosen once I leave Tuskegee. Thank you, and I dare say that those are the goals that all of us here have for you too. All of our Board of Trustee members, our eminent associates, our alumni, and all of us, faculty and staff, who are here day in and day out to make this the most excellent educational experience for you. So for students, set high goals for yourself, as well as pathways to achieve those goals. Don't consider one path to get there. Think of several pathways. You start considering different ways to be successful. Develop a can-do attitude, even if you don't have one already. Tell yourself that you will not give up, that you will learn from each situation in order to make yourself better and stronger. Sometimes it's easier to give up, isn't it? I've done my best. Nothing's going to happen. The same thing is going to happen over and over. Let me just go in another direction. No, do not give up. The next opportunity might be the one where you fly over that finish line and you feel that you have really made your goal. Engage in mastery imagery. Mastery imagery. I remember doing this every time I took a test in college. See yourself achieving in each situation, acing the test, whether it's taking a test or interviewing for a job or an internship. See the positive outcome. Create an image of yourself acing the test. I would imagine what class I would be in. I would imagine the little blue books that we had to open up and write our honor pledge on. I imagined what I was wearing, because on final days and midterm days, you had to have the right outfit on to be nice and comfortable and so on. Now back in those days, I always cut my fingernails short whenever I took a test. I know people are looking at me like I'm crazy. I cut my fingernails short because to me, I had to get down to business. I did not want anything distracting me. I cut those nails short, and that was the time I am ready to work. I imagine myself acing the test. That is called mastery imagery. You do that kind of imagery whenever you see yourself requiring high performance and success in any situation. So for job interviews, for interviews for graduate school, I imagine myself in that way. And it gives you a sense of power. It gives you a sense of self-confidence. And you see the positive outcome. And then repeating affirmations. Affirmations that tell yourself, I am going to succeed. I'm not giving up. This is well worth it. I've got a can-do attitude. There are different ways to achieve this goal. We, faculty, staff members, administrators, alumni, can support students in developing an optimistic spirit. And we do much of this already. We set high goals for our students. We say, you can go here. And we tell them, we believe in you reaching these goals. We believe in you reaching these goals. Share stories of how you've reached important goals with an optimistic orientation. Help our students to see optimism working in our lives. And to talk with students about perseverance and resilience are related to success. And both of these are related to optimism. And make very clear the spirit of excellence in all that students do. And we have to continue to commit to excellence in all we do at Tuskegee. Because we know, as Dr. Troy says, it is all about you. It's all about you and your success. So creating a spirit and culture of optimism is consistent with our commitment to excellence. When we expect excellence for our students and ourselves, we will achieve it. That connection between expectation and outcome. When we expect excellence, we will achieve it. In closing, I would like each of us, students, faculty, staff, alumni, and board members, to repeat this affirmation. I am optimistic about my future. Going to be my best today because the Tuskegee culture is all about excellence in every way. Thank you. Thank you very much.